Welcome to AdmissionSight. My name is Eric Eng and I'm the founder and CEO. Today, I'm going to break down exactly what it takes to get into the Ivy League and discuss some insights about the college admissions process. A little bit about myself: I was featured on the US News and World Report when I have over 10 years of experience in the college admissions process. 75% of our students are accepted to the Ivy League and top 10 universities, and 98% of our students are accepted to the top choice schools. Last year, I was featured on the US News and World Report for my insights about the early admissions process. You can also find out some information at www.admissionsight.com. So today, I like to frame the discussion with: how competitive is it? Stanford last year, they stopped reporting their acceptance rates, but it's roughly around 4%. Harvard's at 4.9%, Princeton's at 5.5%, Yale's at 6.5%, and MIT's at 7%. So needless to say, it's extraordinarily competitive. However, behind closed doors, admissions officers have what you call institutional priorities. And so what this means is that admissions officers tend to favor those who are legacies, underrepresented minorities, wealthy donors, recruited athletes, low-income students, first-gen, and LGBT. And so what this means is that it significantly disadvantages those who are middle or upper middle class, high-achieving Asian or white students because they don't fall within the institutional priorities necessarily of these admissions officers' goals. And so we take a look at the enrollment trends for Asian Americans, which is probably the most difficult demographic to get into when it comes to college admissions. They roughly hover around 20% every year at these universities. So let's take a class of 1,600 students at, say, Harvard, for instance. 20% of them will be Asian American, which means 320 slots. However, if you're an Asian American male or female, that really means half of those. There's only 160 slots for you at a given class at a top university. So let's just assume there's 320 spots and you multiply by 10 for the top 10 universities and you get 3,200 slots. Okay, so there's roughly 3,200 slots in the entire country for an Asian American student to get in. So 0.5% is the real acceptance rate for Asian Americans. And this is extremely difficult. And so what this really means is that you need to prepare early, okay? Starting early is to your benefit and advantage when it comes to college admissions. And so let's start with the first aspect of college admissions, which is really academics. So what are these admissions officers looking for when it comes to academics? It might mean GPA, SAT and SAT subject tests, advanced placement exams. So what are we looking for GPA? Well, 4.0. SATs, we're looking for 1550 out of the 1600. We're looking for 800s on SAT subject tests. And how many fives on APs? Well, as many as humanly possible. I'm joking here. Actually, the ideal number is 8. Okay, 8 by the conclusion of your junior year, because you would qualify for a national AP scholar, and this means you're in the top 1% in the country. However, the National AP Scholar Award has been discontinued, but this is still a great benchmark to gauge yourself when it comes to the number of APs if you're serious about getting into the top universities. But that's not all, okay? Actually, if you really want to stand out on the academic side, it's more than just test scores and grades. And what that really means is competing in regional and national academic competitions. These do take a significant amount of time, and they do take the 10,000 hours of practice. What this might mean is the USA Math Olympiad. It could mean studying problems like this, where you have to put in really the 10,000 hours of practice in order to gain mastery of the subject material. It also might mean the Regeneron Science Talent Search, or the Scholastic Art and Writing Competition, or the National Speech and Debate Association. So competing in these competitions is really what separates the boys from the men or the girls from the women, at least on the academic side. And there's many other competitions. So what it really comes down to is discovery. Do you know about these competitions? Because Your school counselor isn't going to recommend you to these competitions outside of just grades and test scores. And then, second of all, it comes down to preparation. How on earth are you going to prepare in order to give yourself the best shot at placing in these competitions? And so, everything we've talked up to this point is about academics. The second part of this equation is extracurriculars. And so, when it comes to extracurricular activities, I would even argue that this is even more important than the academics. You really want to stand out. You need to be unique. You need a hook. A hook is a strong case for admission that makes your profile unique and really gives yourself the best shot at getting in. And so, what are admissions officers looking for, right? What initiatives did you take on that inspired you to lead, for instance? What you don't want to be is you don't want to be like every other student who plays a violin, for instance. You don't want to join the math club because these are things that are just not going to help you stand out and be unique from all the other applicants out there. You need to think different. This is really important. And so, what this might mean is you might be president of UNICEF, for instance, something that has a real social impact behind your endeavors. Or it might mean spearheading environmental initiatives. Or it might mean studying Greek mythology or the classics. Think about how many Asian students or white students actually study classics or Greek mythology. This will make your application stand out when it comes to college admissions. So, without further ado, let's walk through some profiles of some real students. Applicant X has a 780 math, 790 reading and writing, 800 on math level 2, 800 bio, 760 US history, 4.0 GPA, 4.6 weighted, ranked number 1 in his class, scored 5s on 8 APs, was National AP Scholar, National Merit Scholar finalist, Science Olympiad, Intel ISEF, and was even ASB president. Okay, that means student body president, which is probably one of the most impressive activities you could have on your application. Let's take a look at the results for applicant X. Applicant X was rejected from all the Ivies and was accepted to Berkeley, UCLA, USC, and other schools. And so you might be scratching your head by now wondering why. How come an applicant who really checked all the boxes, had incredible stats, incredible extracurriculars, and still got rejected from everywhere? On the flip side, let's take a look at one of our applicants, our students that we worked with. This student had a 730 math, 720 reading and writing, 4.0 GPA, took some APs, had some 2s on 3s, which we didn't end up reporting in the application, was president of FBLA, and was involved in American Red Cross, HOSA, and did a research internship on smart grids. This applicant was actually accepted to Yale, which is remarkable given that this applicant had weaker stats than the first applicant. Let's take a look at another applicant that we worked with. This one had an 1850 on the SAT, which was out of 2400 on the old SAT, had the 3.3 unweighted GPA, 750 math level 2, 670 chemistry, and 680 biology. 3s and 4s on APs, was a volunteer at the California Academy of Sciences, American Red Cross, Neighborhood Vision Project, and the San Francisco Food Bank. This applicant was probably one of the weaker applicants that we worked with, and the results was he got into UPenn, okay, which again, I think it's incredible given this applicant had a 3.3 unweighted GPA. In fact, we've also had other students who even got into the Research Science Institute, which is probably the most competitive science program in the entire country. They only accept 50 students a year. And if you get into RSI, you're pretty much guaranteed acceptance into MIT. And so if you're wondering by now, how did all this happen? Like, how were we able to get weaker students into great universities, but other stronger students whom we didn't work with actually got rejected? How did this happen? It's going to really come down to the personal statement, okay? And I can't really emphasize this enough. This is so important. A strong application could get a weak student in, and a weak application could keep a strong student out. Let me repeat that again. A strong application could get a weak student in, and a weak application could keep a strong student out. The personal statements, the essays, are incredibly important when it comes to college admissions. If you think about it, the application is literally a piece of paper, okay? You fill out your grades, you fill out your SATs, your APs, and your honors and awards. But even up to this point, you're simply a statistic when it comes to admissions process. Okay, the moment you stand out and become a holistic person whom they evaluate as an applicant is really from the essays, as well as, of course, the other factors like the letters of recommendation. And so when you take a look at the application, there's the essays, which really is your chance to shine. It's your chance to showcase your personality, your unique character, and what shapes you, the values and lessons that shape you as an individual, and how you would add value to the college community. And so, again, the application and the essays are an incredibly important part of this process. It's exactly why we've been able to get weak students in, and it's also exactly why some strong students have not been able to get admitted to these schools. Crafting together unique essays will get your foot in the door, okay? Obviously, we're not saying we could get every student in, but a strong application could get a weak student in. It will increase your probability of getting in. But in theory, you really want all the stars to align. You want a student who's got incredible academics, solid extracurriculars, and a strong application. If all three stars align, then absolutely, you'll have a tremendous shot at getting into these schools. And for our students whose profile really does align with an incredible application, we've been able to place students into Harvard, as well as Stanford, and many other schools. And so, without further ado, I'll leave you with a few questions. How do I get into a competitive school if I have a less than stellar GPA? Am I doing enough to get into the university of my dreams? How do I stand out among all the other applicants out there, especially if I'm another Asian American student who's strong in math and science? I can tell you for this type of applicant, there's a certain way to frame your application that will drive the levers and the probability of admission significantly higher. How do you stand out among all the rest of the students out there? This is really important. Okay, the truth of the matter is, despite institutional priorities, despite the factors that go against you when it comes to college admissions, given how competitive it is, the truth is there are ways to frame or present your college application that will significantly increase your odds of acceptance. And so you need to showcase yourself as an interesting, fascinating, unique candidate that the admissions officers can't wait to admit. And if you can do this through the essays, through the applications, and tell an incredible story about yourself, then you will have a great shot at getting in, even with a less than stellar GPA and test scores. And so you can find out more about us at AdmissionSight.com and contact us through the contact form of our website and reach out. We will give you a free 20-minute consultation and we'll evaluate your profile and see what we can do to hopefully get your foot in the door. I hope you found this helpful. This concludes our session.